You're listening to the Morphology Podcast. Thanks for tuning in to the Morphology Podcast. Hey, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to this podcast and give it a thumbs up if it's deserving. It sure helps me out a lot. Anyway, aka Murph here to share interviews about biking experiences from cyclists who have pedaled to places all over. Each week, we will get to know new people and explore new destinations to ride your bike. As you listen to these adventures, you may wonder, why haven't I done that yet? All right, Pork Tornadoes fans, this week Mike Schulte is on the show to talk about his perspective on what it's like to play in a band during RAGBRAI. The Pork Tornadoes is a popular band in the Midwest, and cyclists who spend the last week of July each year pedaling across Iowa as part of the longest, largest, and oldest recreational bicycle touring event in the world known as RAGBRAI have most likely experienced this great band. Mike is the drummer, and I can only imagine what it's like to be on stage playing popular sing-along covers to thousands of high-energy cyclists. I can tell you firsthand that they are such a fun band to experience. Here's a little taste of the Pork Tornadoes. Oh man, such a fun band and makes me miss live music so much. Well, here's my interview with Mike. All right, well, on the show today we have Mike Schulte. Hi, Mike.
How's it going?
Good. So I would hope that fans of your band would hear your name and be like, uh-oh, I think we got something good going on this week.
I would think so, right? I offer that unique perspective of what's it like to be a rock star and be involved with RAGBRAI. I mean, I got stories.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm glad to have you on the show. And for those who don't know who Mike Schulte is, he is part of the band called the Pork Tornadoes. And I can't remember a year when I have not been sweaty and standing in a crowd of thousands of people, jumping up and down and singing along with your band.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, the thing about RAGBRAI, I moved to Iowa in 96 from St. Louis, and I remember hearing about it, and you just don't get it. You don't understand it until you maybe just make a day to go out and watch one of the concerts at night or even ride it, because I remember thinking, oh, it's RAGBRAI, that sounds dumb. Why are you gonna get on your bike for a week? And man, these why would you see some of these bands?
Right.
That sounds dumb. And then you do it and you go, oh my, what have I been missing? This is incredible.
And there's something weird about RAGBRAI where I will ride my bike and drink beer all day long. I might get 60, 70, 80 miles in, and somehow I can rally, I can take a shower and get sweaty immediately again because it's usually 90 degrees, and then go hang out, drink more, watch the bands, eat everything in sight. There's just something magical about it. And then you wake up the next day and you do it again, like 7 more times. So
some of my favorite stories are people that said that they had never heard us. They had no interest in seeing us. It was a long day. They were tired and they made it to their campground. They showered. They were crawling into their tent, and all of a sudden they're hearing these songs and they're saying, you know what? Maybe I'll walk down there and just check out a few songs, and then all of a sudden it's 1 a.m. and they don't know what happened.
Yeah. Well, okay, I want to get into the whole RAGBRAI, and you're kind of a cycling band when it comes to RAGBRAI, but I know you also perform other places. But let's talk about you, Mike Schulte. Will you give the listeners a taste of like where you live and if you cycle, and if you do, what the cycling culture is like there?
Yes, so I'm in Cedar Rapids, Iowa right now, technically Marion, Iowa. Mm-hmm. And I would say, I don't know what to compare it to, because I haven't lived elsewhere. But the cycling culture around here seems pretty incredible to me. I mean, it seems like it's every year there's more and more people on the trails. There's more and more work from the city, connecting parts of the city to kind of the main trail, the Cedar Valley Nature Trail. There's bars and restaurants all over the spot. I mean, you can't go more than a mile or two without finding a nice place to stop and a nice local business. And I mean, the corridor area, if you know much about that at all, I believe right now you can ride from north of Waterloo all the way to south of Solon, or actually, I think you can get to Iowa City now.
Yeah, you can.
From Solon direct. That's a long way to have, a nice trail and places to stop. And it's pretty incredible when you start thinking about that infrastructure.
Yeah. And I am also in Cedar Rapids. I did not know you were here.
Oh, cool. We could have
town.
Just met up in person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But you're right. Like there's lots of businesses that cater to cyclists and that are right on the trail. And there's nothing better than hopping on your bike in my town here, Cedar Rapids, and pedaling all the way to like Waterloo and not be anywhere near vehicles. It's pretty cool.
It's crazy. It totally is. And there's, like you said, so many great, you're always running into people, everybody's always in a great mood when you pop down to a bar and you don't feel out of place in your spandex or anything like that because everybody else has it on there.
Right. And did I read somewhere that you also have a podcast?
Yeah, actually I do. After being a guest on many podcasts, I'm kind of the designated speaker for the band. So I've ended up being on a lot of podcasts as guests. I decided to start a few different podcasts. One of them, the Pork Tornadoes, actually have one called Pretty Cool, the Pork Tornadoes. And we only, we haven't done it much lately because it's best suited when we're all together in a room. And we haven't done that much lately over the past year. But I also run a podcast called the Iowa Music Podcast, which is interviews with some of the great musicians that we have around the state of Iowa. But
cool.
Those are both podcasts where I do it when the timing feels right. But I really wanted to start something that had more of a structure and that came out on a regular basis. So back in October, I started a podcast called the Confused Breakfast podcast, and it's been going really well. We basically review classic movies from the 80s, 90s, 2000s that were from our childhood, but then we try to review them with more of a mature eye and see if the nostalgia is what makes us like that, or if it was actually a good movie. And it's been funny because some of them have really, really held up, and we found that we still really love them. And some, when you watch it and you're in your 30s, 40s, it doesn't hold up the way it used to.
I'm like mentally thinking of a list of movies that I absolutely loved as a younger person, and I don't know if I'd even take the time to watch them.
It's worth it because we go scene by scene, we break it down, we give you a lot of interesting facts that maybe you didn't know about the movie. We read some of the critical reviews that came out about that movie back when it was released. So it's been a ton of fun. It's more of a global idea. We're with the Pork Tornadoes, you have to know who we are to listen, where this is everybody likes classic movies. So we've been getting some pretty good airplay on that, and it's been a lot of fun. So if anybody's looking for a new podcast, they should check that out.
Yeah, and say the name again.
It's The Confused Breakfast.
Okay, perfect. The Confused Breakfast. A quick interruption to give a shout out to Primal Wear. Cycling is their passion and apparel is their craft. So if you are in the market for a new jersey, bibs, mask, or any cycling apparel, go to primalwear.com and use code PRIMALMURPH to get 20% off your purchase. Yes, 20%. Now back to the show. Okay, so let's talk about the Pork Tornadoes, which is a band. Do you want to give us a little bit, like maybe a short history of the band and why it's somehow become so important to the cycling community?
Yeah, the Pork Tornadoes formed like many other bands around the state of Iowa. Just a bunch of friends getting together, right? This was back in 2008 up in Cedar Falls, Iowa. We got together. We just decided, let's play some music. We'll find a bar to play at. Our friends can come along and have a good time. And it was never much more than that, right? But then, around 2012, 2013, we decided, people were moving out of the city of Cedar Falls. They were moving to Des Moines and Cedar Rapids and Twin Cities. And we said, man, we should go, maybe we should start playing some shows in other towns and go to see those old friends of ours that live in these towns now. And we started doing that, and it just, something changed, something clicked, where all of a sudden, instead of playing in front of 40 of our friends in a bar in Cedar Falls, it's 200 people, it's 300 people, and these are towns we've never been before. And there was a moment that we always kind of look back to, of 2014 being one of the crazy years that I think really took it to the next level. We played 3 really big shows. We played Solon Beef Days down in Solon, pretty big deal to be the headliner down there. We played Uptown Friday Nights in Cedar Rapids, and then we played the Hiawatha Ragbri Stop in 2014. And it's sort of something about that summer. I think we really got in front of more people than we ever could have gotten in front of with that summer. And we took advantage of it. We put on great shows. We showed everybody what we were about. And since then, things have really gone crazy. We've had some viral videos on YouTube. Our cover of Tennessee Whiskey, I think, just hit 6 million views on YouTube. We had I don't know if you saw it, we had a impromptu performance of In the Air Tonight with the Minnesota Vikings drumline.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was at a tailgate in 2019 up in Minnesota, and it went crazy viral. It was like 10 million views, and it was actually just recently featured in Rolling Stone magazine. The article was 10 of the best covers of In the Air Tonight or something like that, and they chose our video and showed it as one of them. So it's just so
awesome. I got to check that out on YouTube.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah, our YouTube channel or our Facebook channel would show you both those videos.
Can you tell the listeners what kind of band you are, or what kind of music do you play? And on a side note, do all the members of the band have beards? Is that
Well, it's such a hard band. I would ask you this, how do you describe the Pork Tornadoes? What is, because I think it's hard to describe, right? And I think that's one of the things that many people like us, and that why we have become a cool experience for a thing like Ragbri, where you can't really pigeonhole us. Just the minute you hear us playing a couple rock songs, we move into some pop stuff, some Taylor Swift. And then once we've played a few of those, we move into some 80s songs, and then we move into 90s, and then we hit you with a country song. And I think that's really maybe where we found our niche, is that, if you like one of my favorite bands in the world, and obviously Ragbri fans, is Hairball. I think they're one of the best bands I've ever seen. But if you're not a fan of 80s music or hair metal type stuff, you may not want to see them play, or the same with a country band. But that's where we tried to diversify a little bit and play songs that we love, and never try to pigeonhole it to say, well, it has to be this genre or this year. We just play songs we like and that we know the crowd will like.
Yeah, and I would say, if I had to describe your band, I would just say high energy, because you can't just stand and watch you guys play. It's got to be kind of interactive, you're either dancing or tapping your foot or, shaking your head. It's definitely a high energy experience.
Yeah, and it's all inclusive, right? It's always felt like our crowd and our fan that it's a club, and it's like this safe place to let loose, have fun. Everyone's in a good mood. You're not going to see many fights or hateful people at our shows, and it's a cool place to be a part of that energy. And as we throw the energy out, crowd throws it back, and it just keeps building throughout the show. And it's been the hardest part, I think, of 2020 for us was having all of that kind of abruptly go away, which is the same for an organization like Ragbri, where you don't take it for granted, but you're just ready for the next year. Here we go. Can't wait for it. And then it goes away, and those those outlets go away, and it just hurts a little bit, you know?
Right. And, of course, with the podcast, the connection to cycling is obviously very strong because this is a cycling podcast. But can you describe what it's like to be up on stage and to have all of these people singing along with you? Like, tell us how that experience is.
It's hard to explain, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you've seen photos, you've seen videos of large crowds and bands playing, but when you're the one up there and you have full control over it, it's an adrenaline rush like no other, because you know that you have to do good, and you know that you can't mess up, and there's this pressure, and you have to be on the top of your game, and hopefully the lights are working fine and there's no technical difficulties. There's all this tension on stage, but the minute you start playing and everything works and the hands go up and the loud cheer comes back to you after your first song, it's an experience like none other. And RAGBRAI being, I think, you can help me out on this. I don't think there's ever an official count on how many people are at some of those overnight shows. Is there? Does anyone ever count that?
I don't believe so, no. And I think that's, kind of the fun mystery of how many people are actually here right now watching this.
And we hear such differing, we've headlined multiple years, and we hear differing variations on what those numbers are. But I mean, I truly believe you're talking 10 to 15,000 people at some of those overnight spots, all in that same area. And it's just, I think that's the cool part about RAGBRAI for me, is that if you're playing, let's just say you're playing a small town in Iowa for a festival, it's just a town festival. Everybody comes, they have a great time, but then they leave and they go home and they wake up on Sunday and go about their daily life. But with RAGBRAI, it's everyone's on vacation essentially, right? They're you know how when you go to Florida and you're on vacation and you end up making friends with someone that you probably never would have talked to or never would have met, because you're both just so loose and you're in such a good mood that you're both on vacation. That's RAGBRAI for me. And I think that's the beauty of playing in front of them, is there's just this sea of people who every single person is having the best day of their life, and you're just there to add a soundtrack to it. And it's just, I wish everybody could experience what that's like, because it's unbelievable, really.
Yeah. A quick interruption to tell you this week's podcast is sponsored by Lizard Lips Lip Balm. These great lip balms contain natural ingredients, come in a variety of flavors, and you can choose certified organic or balms with sun protection. Check it out at lizardlips.net. Now back to the show. Can you remember? Well, hopefully you can remember. I'm actually asking that question because when I look at, I've done RAGBRAI many, many times, and I can't tell you what town I'm in when I'm in the town. And it's not because I don't want to know. It's more of just the excitement and the crowds. And a lot of small towns look the same, with the, courthouse in the center,
Totally.
and the park and the camping setup. So do you recall some of, like, you mentioned Hiawatha, but do you recall some of the really cool places that you've played?
Yes, so I know our exact history. I'm kind of the stats guy too.
Oh, okay.
I like keeping track of all that stuff, and being able to go back to it. So I just learned this for the first time. I was not actually in the band until about 2012. There was an original drummer. So some of that early history is, I don't know as well, but Mason, our singer, told me that the band actually played in 2011 in Algona. Now they said it was a RAGBRAI date, but I don't think they were affiliated with RAGBRAI. I think it was kind of maybe like a sidebar, had a beer garden, and they played in front of it. So it wasn't crazy. It wasn't the main stage. But then, 2014, we got really lucky to be added to that Hiawatha show. That was Dennis DeYoung was the headliner of Styx. And it was strange because I think we were a last minute addition, because Dennis DeYoung was the headliner, but they wanted us to play afterwards. So we were on a separate stage behind everybody, and everyone had to, actually, that's kind of a funny story. The Dennis DeYoung show went a little bit later than they expected, and they really wanted to try to keep people there with us. So the production manager was saying, "Hey, hang on a second, someone's on stage. They're giving a speech thanking everybody for coming." But he kept going. He kept talking. The time's moving. So finally, the production guy goes, "Just start playing. Just go." So we just started playing at the other end of the park, and people just like zombies turned around and just said music, and they just started. There was not one person in front of us when we started that song, and by the end of that first song there was 4,000 people just in front of us. It was crazy because I had never been on a day of Ragbri. I had never played a Ragbri event, so that was our first taste. And then nothing happened. We were hoping, oh, come on, Ragbri, look how good we did in Hiawatha.
Yeah.
And we got very lucky. We had some friends in Charles City in 2017 that knew of us, that knew we would put on a good show, and they took a big chance on us. We were an unproven headliner that had some popularity, but we'd never played Ragbri, and they asked us to headline that show in Charles City, and that was a game changer for us. That was a sea of, probably more than 15,000 people. I don't know if you were there in 2017, but that was crazy night. And then we did not play in that was 2017. In 2018, we got asked to play the route announcement party.
I was just going to bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was super cool too. 'Cause again, not knowing much about Ragbri at this point, only knowing that, oh, it's cool. All these people show up and a band plays and they get drunk and then they move on. That's all I knew of it. Right. And now you're seeing these inner workings of how much work goes into this, and the planning of towns and the announcing of it. And there was 5,000 people that came just to Des Moines in January just to hear what the town announcement was. Mm-hmm. And that again was kind of mind blowing at the size and the scope of Ragbri. But then we played 2018 in Sigourney. We headlined that one. And then our last one being 2019 in Centerville. We were on a kind of a nice streak there of some headlining shows. And then, of course, 2020 does not happen, but
right.
We don't speak of that.
And, all these places that you've been, I'm pretty sure I've seen you each time. And of course, I was at the Ragbri route announcement party. And you actually performed this year for the route announcement party via virtual. So we should probably point that out. You had a couple songs that were played.
Yeah. That was a nice little partnership because that was right, if you recall, when things kind of sort of opened up a little bit in the summer, and people were coming out and trying to distance themselves, and we did a drive-in concert at, I guess that would have been Waterworks Park. Mm-hmm. and we partnered with Ragbri, where I think they live streamed it to people that were doing the virtual ride. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, so that was we've always said we've just been so happy with our partnership with Ragbri, and anytime we've done something with that organization, it's just been so great for both people, that anything we can always do to help, we're involved with. And I think, so maybe that's what you were referring to, this just recently, the route announcement party. Yep. You guys aired a few of our songs. I was talking about the summer virtual.
Yeah, I actually forgot about the virtual show because people that were live watched it from their cars, right?
Yeah, it was like a drive-in concert at that point.
That's pretty cool too. I forgot about that one, but yeah, I was referring to our actual route announcement for 2021.
Yeah, it's any chance we can be involved, because I think really Ragbri is such a staple in our communities, and we like to think of us as a little bit of a staple. We say, come on, we want to help. We want to be a staple too, you guys.
That's right. That's right.
Anytime we can partner, we always do.
Yeah. Well, thinking back to some of those shows, any funny stories that you recall that you'd want to share?
I told you one of them, that Dennis DeYoung show. I'll always remember that. One of the craziest things that I've ever seen in my life was actually that Charles City show. And if you've ever been to a Ragbri concert, a headline show, it's usually set up on a street where it's not meant for a concert, right? It's just kind of, here's where we put the stage, mm-hmm. and here's some plastic fencing to hopefully keep people from moving closer to the stage. And we were playing Charles City. All of a sudden, in the middle of a song, you heard this just insane loud feedback coming from the speakers. Like, I've never heard anything this ear piercing and this loud in my entire life. And I raised my head, we stopped playing, and there were two girls just standing on the subs in front of the stage. and they were swinging the line array speakers, the speakers that you see that are hanging in the air. They were just swinging them back and forth, turning them around towards the stage, turning them back to the crowd. And if you know much about music, that's how feedback happens.
Right.
Is if the speakers go back into the microphone. And I just we couldn't believe our eyes. They stood there for maybe 30 seconds, just having the time of their lives, dancing, hanging onto the speakers for support. And finally somebody kind of came over about a minute later and said, "Hey, you should get down." And they got down and went back into the crowd. And we just couldn't believe that nobody was there to tell them maybe not to do that.
Right.
And then that once they did it, somebody said, "Hey, you need to get down right away." No, it just took a little while. So the following year in Sigourney, when we were speaking with the committee, we mentioned that we said, "Well, what kind of stage security are you going to have?" And they said, "Oh, none. We've never done it before." We said, "Well, we had an experience last year where maybe we should at least just put some barriers in there, or have some guy standing back there because those. I mean, it's funny that nothing bad happened, but those speaker line arrays weigh thousands and thousands of pounds.
Oh my gosh! And they're just like hanging there.
Yeah, and
wow.
if it came off its track or something like that, I don't like to think about what would have happened there, but it was.
Yeah.
It's funny to look back on it because we laughed just so hard afterwards at how did they get up there and how did they start spinning it, but it was. And you can't get mad, right? Because it's RAGBRAI. Everybody's happy.
Right.
Everybody's having a good time. It was pretty amazing. And the funny thing about that Charles City show too was that being our first headline show, we really didn't have a proper gauge on how many people actually really do show up to those shows. So our friends, the Nadas from Des Moines, they played before us. And I remember they got up there maybe 5 o'clock or so, when people start rolling into town. And I peeked out and I saw, there's a couple hundred people. They're rolling up. But then they invited us on stage for their last song. Say, "Hey, let's do a jam before you get up and play." And I'll never forget walking up those steps, having not seen what the front of the crowd looked like at that point, and just boom, sea of people, thousands and thousands and thousands of people. It took my breath away.
Wow. Is there a song that you will not play in front of a huge, big crowd?
For what reason? That we don't want to play it, or that we shouldn't play it?
Well, either one. I'm just thinking of, when you've got a crowd and they're like, play, for example, play Brown Eyed Girl. Like, is there any song where you're like, oh my God, we are not going to play that song again?
Yeah. So if we don't know the song, then obviously we can't play it.
Right.
We've never played the traditional Freebird that everyone yells out, or some of the older songs like the Mustang Sallies. We've never played those, so we would never attempt them in front of a large crowd like that. But there are a few songs, having been a band for 12 to 13 years now, our set list has gone through some changes, some variations. Sometimes you play a song so many times that you just start getting sick of it as a band, and you say, I don't like this song anymore. I never want to hear this song again. I don't care how popular it is and how much our fans love it. So over the years, we've pulled a few songs that were fairly popular. We've pulled them out of our set and officially retired them. One of them being Wagon Wheel.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody plays Wagon Wheel, and it was such a popular song for so long, but we just decided to, you had your time to shine. It's time to go into retirement. We're not gonna play you anymore. So there's a few examples of that, and it gets tough as a band too. If you have let's say you have a 2-hour set, that's only so many songs, right? It's roughly 20 to 22 songs, so it's hard to get them all in there sometimes, and you have to custom tailor those set lists to the crowd you're playing for.
Sure. And hopefully you never take Taylor Swift out of there, because that is a crowd pleaser if I've ever seen one.
That's what there are certain songs that will never ever be able to leave. It's the Shake It Off by Taylor Swift, the Tennessee Whiskey. I will never be able to take that one out ever again. And songs like In the Air Tonight, those have just become such well-known staples of ours that you just can't. At some point, you can't remove it.
Right. Is there on the topic of songs, is there a song that epitomizes RAGBRAI, that when you sing it, you're like, this is RAGBRAI? A quick interruption to tell you this week's sponsor is Thirsty Pigs, a full-service mobile event company offering beer, wine, spirits, plus catering for any indoor or outdoor event. Check out more at thirstypigs.com. Now back to the show.
Man, I don't know if it epitomizes RAGBRAI, but there's a song that we usually close our show with, and we call it the Halo medley, and it's three different songs combined into one. It's Halo by Beyonce. Mm-hmm. It's We Can't Stop by Miley Cyrus. And then it's, of course, everyone knows it's What's Up by Four Non Blondes, mm-hmm. which is also known as What's Going On. And we always let that evolve into a sing-along, the What's Going On part at the end. And, our crowds are always great. We'll play Paramount Theater and you've got 2,000 people there, or we'll play Woolies in Des Moines, you've got 800. But when you've got 15,000 people singing
that, I can't imagine.
I always stop. I put down my drumsticks. I pull up my phone and always videotape that part of the show when we're on RAGBRAI, because it's just, those are the type of moments that I'm on the deathbed someday. I'm going to remember, like, oh, do you remember Centerville RAGBRAI and remember that 15,000 people? It's crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And speaking of crazy, not only do you perform at RAGBRAI, you are actually a RAGBRAI cyclist.
One-time cyclist. Yes, I am.
It still counts. That counts.
That's actually a funny story, because I have this list of things that I want to do before I die, right? And for some reason, I added Ride a Day at RAGBRAI on it, and I fully assumed that someday I'll get around to it. But it was never like a priority, right? I never said, okay, this is the year I'm going to do it. And in fact, I didn't even own a bike. This is maybe 2018, I finally decided, I'll buy a bike. Some of my friends are riding around town, and we'll stop and have beers every couple miles. This is not hard. Let's have some fun. And I reluctantly liked it, right? 2018 was a fun summer, but I had only, 20 different days, maybe 100 miles maximum. So I wouldn't call myself a rider in 2018, right? But in 2019, I kind of felt the bug, right? I started that spring. I actually got my bike fitted for me, which, wow, surprisingly, that helps quite a bit.
Yeah.
I learned things like you should pump up your tires every single time you ride instead of once a year. I learned things like that, which are important things. I think everybody out there probably knows that. And in 2019, I got up to maybe 300, 400 miles. And I thought, wow, I'm a cyclist now. I got the hang of this. Look how good I am. Mm-hmm. And we knew we were playing Centerville RAGBRAI that summer. And I issued a challenge to our fans. I said, okay, if we get, I think it was like 3,000 likes on this post, then Mike's going to ride a day at RAGBRAI, thinking there's probably no way we'll reach that many likes, and then I can make that decision myself. No, we completely smashed that. I mean, within hours, I think we were at 4,000 likes. So I finally said, okay, let's do this. Let's make a plan. And we played Centerville that night. I think it was a Wednesday, and I decided I would ride the next day, which maybe was not the best decision after performing for 3 hours on stage and staying up late. But I did. My mom and I, we rode from Centerville, Iowa, the morning after to Fairfield, Iowa. I teamed up slightly with some friends of mine, Team Death Race. They helped me out. They gave me a little support. But, it was unbelievable. I had only ridden 300 to 400 miles at that point. And I had never ridden more than maybe 25 or 30 in a day. Mm-hmm. So here we are at 65 miles. But just like you said, it was so easy. It was so effortless to go that first 40, 50 miles where you're just laughing and you're out in the sun and you're talking to everybody and you're stopping. But I will tell you, when I hit that final 10 to 15 trying to get into Fairfield, that's when I just, that was tough. That was tough. And I asked a lot of people, I said, how many miles should you ride before a RAGBRAI? The numbers were much higher than 300
Than
to 400
300.
miles.
And perform the night before probably isn't on a lot of people's list of training
Yeah,
either.
I got to bed by 2, 3 in the morning. That's probably not a good start for your rag guy day.
Right.
But I will tell you, it really did kind of light a fire under me, because in 2020, here I am with, my gym's closed, my beer league hockey team is not playing games. I'm not playing shows. I'm not playing music. I knew I needed to do something, and I kind of reverted back to that cycling I had done the summer before. And I gave myself a goal. I said, okay, I got to have a goal. I love numbers, and I want to work towards this. So I said, I'm going to ride 1,000 miles, right?
Oh, wow.
Which seemed crazy. And I did it. I late in September, it was cold. I had like a jacket on, and I was riding around my block, just trying to get that final 2 miles. But it was such a crazy year. You had COVID, and then being in Cedar Rapids, we had the derecho, which, I mean, I didn't ride a bike for the entire month of August because I was dealing with my properties that had major damage and all that stuff. And the trails were a mess. And so it felt like it was so hard to get to that 1,000 miles, but I did. And truly, that was one of the best accomplishments I think I have personally made, because it was really hard. I'm not a cyclist, and I'm not used to riding that many miles, but I had so much fun doing it. And I honestly can't wait for 2021 to maybe up that goal just a little bit and get out and try to beat that one.
Awesome. I was just going to say, do you think you'll do a day of RAGBRAI again? But it sounds like you've already answered that.
I think I will.
Yeah.
I think I will, but I think I'm not going to do it around a show. I think I'd rather ride maybe earlier in the week and then take a day off and then play a show, or vice versa.
Yeah. Okay, so off the topic of RAGBRAI, what other types of events do you perform at?
Oh man, we play everything. We generally play 60 to 70 shows a year, and many of those are private corporate events, like weddings, or we even went out to Long Beach, California a few times to play a corporate event out there. So we do a lot of that, but we also play the public shows. The big thing in Iowa is town festivals, right? You've got county fairs and small town days that they have, and that is the majority of our summer, is playing a lot of those town festivals. We also venture out a little bit. We're going to be in Omaha, Nebraska in April, Sioux City in June. We get into Wisconsin quite a bit. So we do it all. We play theaters, we play small hole in the wall bars, we play big town festivals. We just truly love playing, and anybody that wants to hire us, we're generally on board.
Sweet. And we probably should give a shout out to your bandmates.
Yeah, of course. They nominate me to be the speaker. As you haven't noticed, I like to talk and hear the sound of my voice. So on lead guitar and vocals, Mason Grieve, one of the most talented singers in the Midwest. He was on The Voice in 2014, and he's just such a great guy, such a great singer. He's really that driving force in our band that I think helps us stand apart. And Corey Talbot on bass, he's great. He sings a few songs. He's actually in the Hy-Vee corporate world, so he works with Hy-Vee on his main job. And then of course you got Jerry Lawrenson on keys and vocals. He's also the member of a group called Piano Palooza. They're a dueling piano band in Iowa, and they're just one of the best dueling piano bands. I know there's a ton of them, but they're easily one of my favorites. It's just great being in a band with these guys. I always say that I'm the least talented person in the band because they're just so good. All these guys I play with, and I'm lucky to be in the band.
Yeah. And watching you guys, it's kind of fun. I would assume it's fun from your vantage point because you're the drummer. You get to see everything going on in front of you and see the crowd on top of that.
Yeah, they'll maybe call the drummer the quarterback, maybe, or the goalkeeper. I mean, I'm in back. I see everything, right? I see my bandmates. I see the crowd. I can see our production team behind us. And yeah, it's some of the shots that our photographer will take from behind me at the drum set are some of my favorite photos in the world, just because sometimes you don't you don't take it all in while you're there, because you are still concentrating. You're playing, you're making sure you're doing things right and everything sounds good. But every once in a while you go back and you look at those photos from shows like Ragbri, and you just go, how am I so lucky to do this? This is just unbelievable.
Yeah. And you never did answer the beard question. Like
the beard question.
Do like beards make you a better musician, or like, how does that work?
Man, that I don't even know how the whole beard thing happened. I've always had a beard. I don't think I've been clean shaven for, oh man, like maybe 10 years now. And Mason would grow a little beard every once in a while and shave it off. He's pretty baby faced under there. And Jerry, our keyboard player, was not actually in the band permanently until about 4 or 5 years ago. So something happened, during that beard evolution from 3, 4, 5 years ago, where everybody had beards. And it was this obsession thing that it just so happened that 3 out of 4 of us had a beard, and people kept, noticing, oh, you guys got beards. Everybody's got beards. And our bass player cannot grow facial hair to save his life. So he will always be clean shaven.
Yeah.
But that's how we came up with our, if somebody asks what a description of our band is, we say beard pop.
Perfect. That's awesome.
Because it's a nice little juxtaposition there, right?
Yeah. Well, throw out some contact information for people who are now dying to get your band to play.
Yeah, so you can find us in a lot of different ways. We're on all the social medias. You type us in to Facebook, to Instagram, to the ever popular nowadays TikTok. We're going viral on the TikTok right now.
Nice.
You can search for us on all that stuff. You can look us up at our website, which is porktornadoes.com. You can also type in party.com.com. You have to spell out the first DOT. That was a nice little website idea we came up with there, because of course, party.com has already been taken, so you got to add the extra.com, right?
Right.
You can email us at info@porktornadoes.com, and that is, for those that don't know the spelling, it's TORNADOES is how we spell tornadoes, which I don't know if is there a proper way to spell tornadoes? Do you know? Is it OS or OES at the end?
I think I've always
like
spelled
tomatoes?
OES, but I don't know if I've been doing it right. Well, it is right if it's your band, right?
You're right. Yeah. I think it's like potatoes and tomatoes. I think you're allowed to spell it either way.
Okay. All right. Good.
Yeah.
Well, anything else you want to plug or talk about?
Not too much really. We do a lot of interesting stuff on our social medias. We do have that podcast. We're always posting cool content on YouTube, which has some of those videos we talked about earlier. We are still our summer's pretty crazy this year, but we are still technically open for a Ragbri date. I know last year kind of messed a lot of stuff up, where you're planning for it, then it goes away, and now the route's the same. So we love being on Ragbri. We love being a part of it. And if there is any of the towns out there that are still looking for headline entertainment, definitely reach out to us, because it just won't feel the same for us to not be there with you guys.
That's for sure. So everyone's got to keep their eye on which night, if hopefully you'll be playing on Ragbri, and if somebody knows somebody in those towns, to reach out and get you guys connected.
Yeah, reach out to us. We're good at all taking care of everything. You can hire pieces individually if you want to, or else you can say, hey, bring everything, bring the stage, bring the sound, bring the lights. We can handle all that stuff on our own. So it's pretty nice when you're already worrying about a lot of other stuff. You don't have to worry too much about your entertainment.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Mike, for being on the show and talking about the Pork Tornadoes. And it's pretty cool to know that you are a true life cyclist now.
Yeah, right. I'd like to make the claim that maybe I'm the only headlining Ragbri musician that rides Ragbri. Can I say that? Until somebody proves me differently,
okay.
I don't know.
All right, we'll take it.
I'm sure there's plenty of them.
All right, Mike. Well, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, listeners, that's it for this week. A big thanks to Mike for taking the time to come on and talk about the band and his take on Ragbri. And it's pretty cool to hear his story about getting back into cycling. As he mentioned, look for Pork Tornadoes on any of the social media sites to find more info as well as contact info to get them to play at your next event. You can find other interviews with cyclists on the Murphology Podcast through any of your podcast platform or go to murphologypodcast.com. If you have a topic or the name of a cyclist you find interesting, send me an email. For now, I leave you with some more music from the Pork Tornadoes. Thanks for listening.
Superstition ain't the way.